What's up, YouTube? We're talking college sports in the Deep South, where college football is king, and on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle. Kennard Vernon Stewart here once again for the podcast. For Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn, go ahead and comment once you hear the content. Also, like or dislike the video. And if it be your will, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And guys and gals, especially if you're a new subscriber, just remember, over here, it's always great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle. The Auburn Tigers capped off the second scrimmage of this particular fall camp. Gus Malzahn citing that there were some improvements, but still got a little ways to go. He said things like, we're starting to look like an Auburn offense. Now, what that could possibly mean is when, referencing his version of the Auburn offense, I think about times like 2013 spots. In 2014, the offense got clicking, scored a lot of points that year. Then I think about, oh my goodness, with Cam Newton in 2010. 2013 was actually pretty cool because, you had a quarterback that rushed for 1,000 yards. Then you team that up with Trey Mason with another 1,800. And then, Cameron Artis-Payne, I think, added in like 6. And you had Corey Grant, a really nice running back situation by committee that we could possibly see this year when you think about guys like Shaun Shivers. See, the thing about Shaun Shivers I like is that he doesn't mind attacking in between the tackles either. You know what I'm saying? You could see him on video footage like running over people, dragging people. I'm talking about real deal Power 5 defenses like LSU. I think the guy should have touched the ball a little bit more. But anyway, turns out, it was cited that there were some drop passes in the particular scrimmage and, just the typical scrimmage things that happen, mistakes that happen that have to be shored up. Auburn's got about 2 more weeks before they hit the field to play against Oregon. And, of course, a lot of these things you want to have shored up by then. We're talking about 2 long weeks of practice, long weeks of focus, and things of that nature. But nonetheless, not sure why people thought that, you were going to get a quarterback answer yesterday, but I didn't expect it. And as of now, the Joey Gatewood and Bo Nix saga still continues. But my favorite part about yesterday, it had nothing to do with the actual scrimmage itself. It had to do with some of the interviews that I heard from some of the players in their post-scrimmage interviews. Now, let's try this on for your mental size. Just imagine you have a crime that's been committed. Stay with me now. Don't stay with me. You have a crime that's been committed and you have 3 guys that you suspect did this crime. And you're trying to corroborate all of their answers. You got one guy saying one thing, you got one guy saying the next, one guy snitching on the other. And next thing you know, you have a debacle where all 3 guys get arrested because they've corroborated all the evidence and all the conversations, and now they have enough to book these guys. But on the other hand, you have a situation where you have 3 guys that are basically saying the same thing. To the point where we're not going to get any information as to whether we can arrest these guys based on what's being said. Here's where I'm going with this. When I listened to the interviews for some of the Auburn Tigers and some of the guys that were interviewed, like Chandler Wooten, Boobie Whitlow, Cam Martin, and, I think back to Marlon Davidson's interview during media days, and one collaborative thing that I'm seeing out of these players, they're a lot more enthusiastic about this season. They're a lot more passionate. When you listen to their conversation, you can't help but feel their excitement. They say things like, we want to win a national championship. They say things like, we're tired of being that 8-5 team. They also talk about things that gets you on a high level of victorious successes is when you start talking about the concept of teamwork and that next man up mentality. Because Boobie Whitlow was asked, well, was there any difference between these wide receivers and the starters? Like, no. No, we continue business as usual. Yeah, they missed some balls, but at the same time, we pick each other up. And that's the formula for potentially a good football team. Cam Martin talked about how hard these guys are working. I mean, you talk about in the Deep South with 100+ degree weather and having to fight through that, and how you get tired and sweaty and slippery and all those different kind of things, how that will pay off when you start talking about that third quarter, late third quarter game, or that fourth quarter game where all you got left is just your will. You know what I'm saying? Like your willingness to win this game. Like being tired is not an option at this point, because that's what's going to separate down the stretch, especially when you look at Auburn between Texas A&M and LSU. It's going to take some will to get through that with wins. It's going to be some tight situations where it could come down to a field goal, or it could come down to a goal line defensive stop. Where are you going to be when those types of things happen? That gritty level of football to where you're putting it all on the line and you're not you're not leaving without a win. That's what I loved about Nick Marshall, for example. He might not have had all the typical tangibles that a quarterback would have, but I guarantee you every orange and blue bleeding Auburn fan, once they really got to know Nick Marshall's skill set, had all trust in him on the football field that he was going to find a way to make it happen. Probably one of the most ingenuitive quarterbacks in Auburn history. Big shout out to Nick Marshall, War Eagle. But those are some of the takeaways that I got. The players are actually talking as team, talking as unit, talking not I or what I'm going to do. Talk about what we're going to do as a unit. And I think that's very important when you're going into the type of schedule that Auburn is going into. And mind you, you got the troops to do it. Too deep in every, important position. Starting to get some more depth on the offensive line. We've talked ad nauseum about the defensive line and how great they're supposed to be. Quick linebackers, much more athletic at the linebacker position. So, you can take this whole second scrimmage thing, take it for what it's worth. None of us were in there to see like any high levels of, footage. But at the same time, I got the feel from those interviews that those guys had that these guys are working hard. These guys are really and it's all about that mentality as well. You know what I'm saying? You believe something when you've developed that mentality to where, you know what, I think I can do it. I think we can do it. And I think we can do it with the team that we have. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here with some insight on the second scrimmage for the Auburn Tigers and some very impressive interviews by some of your Auburn football players. KJ Britt had one a couple of weeks ago. You talk about Chandler Wooten, Boobie Whitlow, and Cam Martin were interviewed after practice yesterday. Very impressive interviews. Very proud of these young men. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here on the podcast, talking a little Auburn football sports talk. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel. Just remember, guys, it's always great to be an Auburn Tiger. And in the Deep South, where college football is king, and on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle.